What's up? Seriously, like, how are you? I'm so glad you decided to come back and check out another video. So, something that's on my mind right now that I felt passionate to make a video on, and this is actually something that I've had a lot of people ask me about on previous live streams, is do I need gear to be where I need to get? Now, my question to you is gear important? I'll answer that for you. Yes and no. So right here, this is my Canon Rebel that you've seen in previous videos. This is the camera that I started out on when I decided to go the professional photography route, or route, however you want to say it, or whatever country you're in. And honestly, like I was just excited to get a DSLR camera because I knew that they were expensive. I knew that, they weren't just some cheap $50 camera. I had to spend like hundreds and thousands of dollars. Now this one's not thousands of dollars, but you get my point. But really, one thing that I want to stress right now before we really get into the meat of this video is that it's not about the gear. It's about the skill. Now, we're going to be talking more about that here in a sec, but when it comes down to do you need the right gear, my honest opinion is yes and no. Because honestly, when you're starting out as a photographer, there's a lot of things you have to consider. I just did a video a little while ago, I'll put an iCard right here, where, trying to decide where to buy your camera. There's also the thought process of, are you going to do landscape? Are you going to do this professional portrait? Or are you just doing this as a hobby? There's a lot to take into this. So remember that, number one, are you doing this professionally as a professional landscape photographer, professional portrait photographer? Or number three, are you doing this as a hobby? Now, when it comes to gear, it all comes down to skill. You can have the fanciest camera that's out there. For instance, I know if there's some gear, some lenses that cost over $50K, $50,000. Now that's a lot of money. And if you're spending that much money on one lens, you better be pretty dang good at photography, because that's a lot of money to be dropping, half a $500,000 on something like that. That's insane. So and I know you're gonna hate me for saying this, but this is where skill comes in. There is only one way to get better as a photographer, or just at anything in general, but today we're focused on photography, and that is practicing. Practicing. Look, I took a photography class up at Weber State University, and in that class, we had weekly assignments that we had to take. We had to submit, and it wasn't easy assignments. Like the first one was we had to learn how to edit and how to get this one photograph to as normal colors as we could. And to be honest with you, I wasn't even allowed to use Lightroom. I had to use Photoshop, and it took me a little bit because that's how much of a newbie I was when it came to photography. Now I did a really good job on it. I got an A- on the assignment. But it took me a good several days just to be able to understand and be able to get things to the right, color scheme and so many other different aspects and ratios of that assignment. So when it comes down to skill, it comes down to practicing. Look, I get it, we're in winter right now. There's not much you can film and photograph outside because it's cold, it's bleak. You might not, this camera, it's not waterproof. I have to be careful with this. I can't be sitting out there in the middle of a snowstorm for 4 hours because it could probably ruin. But at the same time, if you can't go out and take the shots, grab shots that you've already taken. So here, I'm gonna give you an assignment right now. Number one, this is your first assignment that I want you to do. And I want you to come back and tell me in the comments, make sure you tell me how you did in the comments. Take some of your shots that you've already taken, whether it be mobile shots or shots on a DSLR or just a point-and-click camera. Take them into whatever editing program you use. There's several out there. I use Lightroom and Photoshop. And just start to edit on them and try to improve your editing skills, because one of the most important aspects of being a successful photographer is being able to edit your photos and to edit your work to such a pristine, perfect notch that, like, especially like if you're getting paid to take these photos for people, like, especially like, great example, if you're being paid as a wedding photographer, you don't want to give your client some horribly edited shots, because they've just spent thousands of dollars on you as the photographer, and they're just gonna, if you give them bad shots, they're gonna give you a bad review. They're not gonna recommend you to other people. If you go on my Facebook page, which I'll put a link to it up here, or actually no, I'll put it in the description below, you'll see that I have like a 5-star review rating, and that's because I've really learned the importance of editing. I've learned the importance of making sure that my clients are happy with their shots, that they're happy, and that they're willing to recommend me to other photographers. I mean, other clients. I know what I'm saying, but I get a little tongue-tied sometimes. But so the second assignment I want you to do, I know, you're probably in your 30s or 40s and you're thinking, Tony, I'm out of school. I don't need homework. Well, this is your homework. So your second piece of homework is I want you to go out and take some photographs and then tag me on Instagram after you take these photographs, because with Instagram and how it's evolved, you can now actually upload these shots to Instagram and then just tag me on them. Tag me and say, hey, what are your thoughts? And I will, honestly, I'll do my best to give you feedback. I'll say like, well, I would have changed this, that, or the other. And shoot, I might even edit your shots for you on a live stream, because I'm gonna be bringing the live streams back here in the next couple months. So I want you to do those 2 homework assignments for me, but really when it comes down to it, let's go back to why you clicked on this. Is gear important? Look, I have this goes to, that's part of my gear. This is my camera battery charger. This right here is, I can stick this, I can mount this like right here. This is other gear that I have. Is gear important? And my answer to that is yes, to an extent. You should not be so reliant on gear that you forget to practice. Look, I'm being very blunt. I'm not beating around the bush in this. I'm being kind of like straightforward, down to the T on this. But I do this out of care and concern for you as the new and upcoming photographer, or as just the person that's returning to photography. Practice makes perfect. I cannot emphasize that enough. There's my favorite phrase, my famous line. I cannot emphasize that enough when it comes to photography, is that you got to practice when it comes down to it. Because that's you'll see when you go on my Facebook page, the reason my photos have turned out so well is because I went out and practiced. I sat out there one time in the middle of a rainstorm, which I shouldn't have done with this camera, but I sat out there in the middle of a rainstorm getting landscape shots, and not just like 5 or 6, I got like over 20 shots of this one location, because I knew I was going to need different shots. I was going to be able to go through and comb through and see which ones I liked. So if you got value out of this, then make sure you go and check out this video right here, where I talk to you about how to improve your photo skills and really just watching photography fails. And actually, I was featuring Killdeer, the guy who was recording this video for me. Me and him reacted to photography fails, and really take that into note and take that into your experience as to these are things you need to avoid. So make sure you head on over there, and I'll catch you over there.